welcome back to another episode of the Young Entrepreneurs Network podcast. We're on episode 20, I believe, or 21. It's one or the other. We've got a long-awaited guest. We have already had him on as an online episode, so if you want a proper throwback, go back and see a young Andy that was like 2.5 years ago, where he didn't have any guns or anything like that. He was just a skinny boy. This episode's been long overdue, man, given the changes that have probably happened in the last 2.5 years. But we're going to start with your journey because I feel like I didn't actually unravel it that much 2.5 years ago, and we've got a completely different audience now. So try to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, mate, and I guess the start of the journey.
Yeah, starting with business, it probably was just when I came out of high school. I wanted to try something. I didn't want to work in a 9-to-5. That wasn't the life I wanted to live, and I was very, very terrified of letting anyone know I wanted to start anything. So I started a Twitch streaming of just doing, I think it was PUBG that I started with, told no one for a year. So not one single person apart from my brother and my cousin knew that I'd done this. And the time when it started to like slip out was when one of my friends had found my Instagram that I set up for my Twitch stream. Still when I wasn't showing my face and all that sort of stuff. But at that point, that was the start of the whole journey. Over time with streaming, I developed a much stronger community. Something that I was always really big on was talking to people rather than just playing the game like most people done and never talked to anyone, never talked to chat, never actually got to know their audience. I done that, and it eventually led me to just going for just chatting. That was what I like to do. I like to talk to people, wanted to hear how their day was going, how I could help them. A lot of them were streamers as well. So I started to move then into people were asking me about social media, how to grow your social media account, how to actually create content. And that was what eventually led to me wanting to create content specifically on how to help streamers. Yep. That's where I started to move into that journey, that side of things, where I would have that area. I could actually get paid to help people with their social media side of things. So I started to do some like exclusive streams where it was more how to grow your Twitter, how to grow your Instagram. And that was when I moved into the YouTube scene as well, with the streaming alongside that of growing yourself as an individual with the personal development, but also growing your own streaming community, your own actual community, someone that would care. Following along from that, that was where I wanted to move into social media coaching. Tried that for a little while, enjoyed it, but inevitably I realized everyone just wants likes and followers. No one gave a crap about how the actual community fostered. It wasn't about how you could impact people's lives. It was all about how many followers can I get? How many likes can I get? Didn't really enjoy that. And eventually over time, I got to the stage where mindset and habit coaching were the two things that kept coming up in my life. Only reason I ever done anything was because the habits had developed. Only reason I ever kept working at something, even when something didn't go right, was because of the mindset stuff. So that was, I guess, the start of the whole journey, which before led in everything that we're doing now.
We'll run it back to the streaming side of things. Also, you built a community to over 1,000 like paying members, subscribers, whatever you'd like to class it as. Just chatting as well, just for context. That's literally just you with a camera talking to your community. In case there's anyone that has never been in touch before. You touched on something pretty important at the beginning about the support of your brother. That was something I wanted to highlight, because your support network prior to like us knowing each other, he became obviously a huge part of that, mate. So do you want to kind of unravel a little bit about that, the kind of things that he would do, and how it would make you feel?
Craig, who's my brother, he was really the only one that believed in me at the start. So my dad knew what I was doing, but it was always the way that usual parents are. How much money are you making on it? You know, you actually doing anything? Is this going to be successful? Are you thinking about your job and all that sort of stuff? So it's not to say that my dad hated what I'd done. He was curious, but he just didn't understand. My brother was the one who always would ask me how I'm getting on, what I'm doing to move forward. And whenever I came with an idea, he would question me on it the way that you would now, or other people in the network would now. And that's something I never had. So in my friend group in high school, I've talked about them a few times. There's only a few of them really that I would hang about with on a regular basis anymore. And it's not to say that I think they're bad people or I don't like them. I genuinely do like being around them. But in terms of business development and business growth at that time, none of them were doing anything like that. And also, we know high school, very judgmental. As soon as something gets out, everyone starts to talk, and I was very worried about that. So Craig, for me, and still to this day, is like my biggest supporter for as close as I am with him. Yeah. I'm very, very lucky to have a brother like that, and to actually be able to confide in him in the things that I'm doing, the things I'm wanting to move forward with. Now that's slowed down a little bit as I've been able to just develop a better mindset for myself, and also have the likes of you, Jack, and everyone else in the network to bounce ideas off of people who are in business. But Craig is still the person I will always go to, and he helped me continue on every single path. When I didn't want to move forward, he was the one I went to.
Because I think in the beginning, like, you need the extra push / support, because it is something so different, so new. And yeah, you get fucking outcasted, mate. Like, it's nobody's business when you're doing something like that. So that extra bit of support's huge. Now, in regards to your community that you built, what do you think they would see yourself as when they were watching you? Like, what do you think when they were coming to your streams? What were they coming for? And what do you think their opinion of you was?
For me, when it came to the just chatting side of things, they came to my stream because I actually cared about who they were as an individual.
Okay.
A lot of streamers will ask how your day is. I would then spend the next 4 hours talking about their life and what they can do to help themselves, or any stories that they have, or anything they wanted to dive into. It kind of, at a point, became like therapy for some of them, which now, looking back, very wrong thing. Should not have done. Should have kept life and that sort of thing separate. I wasn't qualified to do anything. I didn't try to give people advice that a therapist would give, but I wanted to be an ear to at least listen to the problems that they had. Their opinion of me, I think the people who enjoyed my stream for enjoying it I hope would feel very highly of me. The people who were in business and understood business would have known that I was being run over by those who were using me just as a soundboard, just as a person to spew everything that's going wrong in their life. And that was not sustainable. And that's the main reason I stopped streaming. Yeah,
because when I look back on one of the videos I watched this morning, which is actually the very bottom of your Instagram, it was actually a video of you going through a board that your community had created about you. Where they were saying all these amazing things about you, and one of the things that they said was that you were changing the world one small act of positivity at a time. And it was clear like what they all thought of yourself, but there is also an aspect where you're building a relationship with people where when they come to you purely to vent or talk about things that are, from maybe a negative aspect in their life, and you're probably one of the only people that actually be willing to listen. I can imagine that made you feel quite overwhelmed and start to lead to maybe some negative, I guess, like, I don't know what the word would be, but you just start to feel a bit shitty, I don't know what the word would be, overworked, just drained.
Drained was the word that instantly came to my mind. Towards the end, I really did start to just feel drained. And I started to want to play games more, to not solely have talking. But what would happen is that when I played the games, people would start talking and I would start questioning, and then I would inevitably just go back to my just chat, and I would barely play the game. The game wouldn't even be there. And then the days that I tried to just not focus on the chat so much and just play the game, I felt something was missing. And I don't really like this. I want to play the games outside of streaming and just enjoy it, and I'd love to talk to people here. So it just didn't work. And it's just interesting that you say that. I've still got that Kudo board saved as a favourite on my top panels on my stream. So I've got like a Google folder that's streaming, and that's still on the thing, and I go on it from time to time to see some of the stuff that people had said back then.
I think you forget the impact that you have on people when you just go into different ventures and you do different things. There was one of the videos that came shortly after that where it was your 2-year anniversary, and you spoke about the fact that you couldn't wait to continue on this path. Was that really how you were feeling back then, or was that draining like aspect actually coming into play already?
2 years probably would have been still the time where I was absolutely loving it, because I was really moving forward with a lot of the things. I think I'd done streaming for 3.5 years and then stopped. So I think it was about the 3rd year where I really didn't enjoy it as much anymore. I wanted to find a route that I could potentially take out of that and move more into a coaching role. That was what I really found a little bit more passion. I was reading a lot more books then. And we all know what we're like when we start reading self-development books. We think we're gods. And I did that at the time when I was reading them and I was moving forward. I was waking up early I was doing these massive routines. I was working out as hard as I could. At the time, it was very draining and it probably wasn't good for me. There was no real enjoyment out of that. It was more so just doing it because every book says that you have to do it. But at the time, I did feel I was unstoppable, and that was what made me want to sort of move away from the streaming and harness that.
Because something that's more higher, like there's a higher leverage opportunity in something like coaching as opposed to streaming. But the people at the top, like the top of the top, they are like, it's like a monopoly. They're literally like crushing it on a whole new level. So when it comes to the coaching side of things, then how did you go about acquiring your first client? What was that kind of process like?
I bought Vanessa Lau's Instagram course. So there's a course she does that was called BGA. I can't remember what it exactly stands for. It's actually shut down now, but that was the most I'd ever spent in a course. And for reference, it was £1,000. That's what I spent on it. And that course was about how to get your first clients on Instagram through whatever niche you wanted to create. So I went through that whole process on social media. I built out the first couple of weeks of what I wanted to do. And what she recommends is having beta testers. So I gave probably about a 6 or 7 week course to 5 different people for £50. That was what I charged for them. That was my beta testers. Now, I spent a very long time making that course and making it good. And then also I had sent out originally a survey to Twitter for people to fill in to vet them. So I had like 55 respondents. I put them all in an Excel spreadsheet. I looked at who would be the best fit, who I could get the best results for, and then went forward with that. Done the beta testing with all of them, helped them all move forward. I believe they all got pretty good growth for their social media, but it wasn't long enough of a time span to see exponential growth for all of them. It was more so they were building what I now realize was long-term connections. But a 6-7 week program wasn't gonna change their life. And I realized that, to move this forward, I would have to really, really heavily work on it. But throughout that time, I kind of started to notice that all these people just cared about was likes and followers. It wasn't about long term. It was all, what can I get the quick wins on? And I guess that was the first instance of realizing, quick wins are really important when you're coaching someone.
What would you do differently now?
Charge more. Charge more to begin with, for sure. Realize the knowledge that I had. I worked on social media every single day. I edited every single day. I posted every single day. I messaged people every single day. I knew what it took in order to get there, and I knew it wasn't easy, but maybe more targeted towards people that were of different places. Problem with streaming as well, a lot of streamers don't actually have disposable income. It is very much either a passion project on the side, or they truly don't know what it takes to make it as a streamer. Even when I was at 1,000 subs, I knew that was fickle. I knew that wasn't going to last. I knew that was people who would support you here and there. People always come and go. So I was very, very fortunate in the position that I was in. The majority of streamers aren't. And to pay for a service that I would be offering that would be high ticket would not be possible unless it was for the top of the top. And I didn't have the expertise or capabilities to do that just yet.
What market would you take that to now if you were to do it again?
If it was social media?
Yeah.
Probably agencies. That would be the area where they are doing well with what they do, but are not promoting on social media, and more target, probably like the editing side of things. Is that something that I've had just consistent experience on? Social media is something I've maybe took a further step back since those streaming days anyway.
Yeah. So moving on to the kind of habit building coaching avenue that you started to go down, what was the kind of process like at the beginning? How did it unravel?
Everything at the start was finding what I loved the most out of coaching. So social media was the part that I originally went in, but I realized that everything to do with social media and actually doing it was your habits. How often you planned for what you wanted to do, how often you posted, when you posted, everything was your habits. And then when your social media isn't doing well to begin with, it's all about how you can actually use your mindset to keep going, even when it doesn't look good. And that was what led me to there. So I started to post content just on Instagram because I wasn't streaming at this time anymore. I'd stopped streaming. I started to just post content on Instagram on habit building and coaching, but I had no idea how to sell it. Not one single clue. So I done posting on Instagram and social media for about a year. Didn't sell to not one single person I sold to. Got questions weekly on, is there a course I can buy? Can I work with you one-to-one? Didn't have a fucking thing to sell. Didn't have one thing to do. Didn't know what to sell. Didn't know how I would do it. So actually going into there, I, in terms of business, failed. Didn't earn anything. I was doing obviously university at the time, and I was working my way through that. So it wasn't as if I was desperate for the money.
Yeah.
But by the end of that year, I was thinking, how the hell am I going to make anything off of this? Social media is more tangible because it's like likes and followers. But at the time when I was thinking of habit building, it's like, I don't know how to tangibly get them to change their habits, when the thing that brought me to this was like the worst thing that happened in my life, which was my mum passed. And that was what got me to build better habits, have a better mindset, be stronger in what I was doing. Yep. I couldn't tell someone, this is what has to happen in order for you to get there. It's like, no, you have to figure out a way to do so. So for the habit stuff, it was my passion, and still is actually my passion to this day. I absolutely adore it. Yep. I didn't know how to turn it into a business at the time. I was fortunate enough that after I had met you, I got opportunities to do habit coaching itself, and I felt that I learned a lot. But prior to that, in terms of business, if you look at it from outside, fail. I didn't earn a single pound from actually doing that.
Now, obviously, the knowledge that you've gained, like in the last even 2 years, since 2.5, 3 years since then, knowledge of sales that you've got now, what were you not doing then that you should have been doing?
Selling.
But the actual what did it actually come down to from a component aspect?
Being scared. That was it. That's as simple as that. I was very scared to put myself out there to say that I can do something for you. You have to pay me to do it. Terrified. Did not like it. Did not like it one bit.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. I was terrified to do anything to do with sales. So I never did.
And how did you overcome that?
Reading about sales, watching other people who are good at sales, and with what we're at, we are surrounded by people who do sales on a daily basis. Yeah. So I genuinely think, just like anything, habits, repetition of the habit, repetition of seeing. Now, still to this day, I need to get a lot better at sales. We're taking a course right now on how to do that better. We're watching a lot of things on how people sell. I have also bought a course recently to actually do better on sales on Instagram. So for me, it is just about that repetition of then learning and then doing, because there's no point in learning and then taking no action.
Do you think the process that we took to improve my sales back in May was a good method? We'll touch on what the actual method is in just a second, but reflecting on it, the process that we went down with that, because I felt like we made really good headway back then in a really short space of time. Let's see what your thoughts would be on it.
I think it was good for the knowledge that we had.
Yes.
Now it would be different. We are very fortunate to have courses about sales that are of people who are significantly better than us at sales. Back then though, with the knowledge that we had, I don't think there could have been a better way that we would have done it without investing heavily into someone to teach us how to do sales. Yeah. We systemized it, we structured it, we tried to move forward as best we could. I don't think there could have been any better way that we could have tried to do it.
For context, for listeners, basically what we done back then was that, similar to Andy, I didn't like selling. Every client that I signed was pretty much them banging at the door wanting to buy, which is a good thing to have, because it means that you're obviously crushing it from an actual delivery aspect, and word of mouth is positive, which I think is the best way, especially in the beginning, to grow a business for sure. But yeah, so back then we recorded every one of my sales calls that I had. I went heavy on an outreach basis on LinkedIn, sent a ridiculous amount of video messages to build relationships that just naturally started resulting in sales calls. Through increased number of outreach, also we started getting an increased number in fact-finding calls and sales calls. I started recording every single one of them, and I would send them to Andy, I would send them to my good friend Ollie, and I would also send them to my coach at the time, and they would rip me to absolute shreds. It was talk about feedback, man. Fuck me. That was, it's very much thrown in the deep end. But the good thing was, because we created an environment where it was such an increased intensity of I had so many sales calls booked in, every single one of them was recorded, and it was our primary focus at the time, which I think is another crucial aspect, where as soon as a sales call was finished, it was uploaded straight onto Notion through WeTransfer, and all of you watched it and left notes and just ripped me to shreds.
Yep.
Which, because of the increased intensity, you could imagine, guys, that the time frame was much shorter in terms of how much growth I would experience in that window. So yeah, in the space of a month, it was like night and day between it. So yeah, I think with the knowledge that we had, definitely, like, outside perspective, you get so lost in sales when you're actually like fucking in it, you don't even realize half the things that you're doing. The first thing that was actually said to me by the coach that I worked with at the time was 60 seconds in, and she goes, "Pause it, fucking pause it." And I was like, oh my God, we're 60 seconds in. She's like, "You've just said mate 6 times in 60 seconds. And I was like, fuck. And that's when I knew I was going to get ripped to shreds. Yep. So yeah, that was definitely how, I improved sales, and then naturally from there, you start to get involved more and more in the kind of sales side of things. And like you said, we've invested heavily from an aspect in just learning from people, spending a lot of time with people, but also in courses as well, which has fast tracked it for sure. There was something you touched on though in regards to your mum and the role that she played growing up. Do you want to just expand a little bit on the context, the role your mum played in your life, and how you feel about it now?
Well, my mum actually battled cancer for 6 years when I was younger. She unfortunately passed away in 2009, just after my 10th birthday. We spent that 10th birthday in the hospital with her. So after that, my life just kind of got ripped to shreds. Didn't see a point in what was going on. I always remember the one big memory that always comes back to me is we went to the funeral, and we went back to the place after that you go after the funeral to celebrate their life. So at the time, I was 10 years old. I didn't have a clue why we were celebrating this. Why was everyone happy when we were in getting food, having a cup of tea, they were all chatting with each other? I remember just sitting in the corner and thinking, what the fuck is going on here? Why are we celebrating anything? There's nothing to celebrate here. After that, my life, what I call it as and what I classify it as, and I actually found out recently my brother had the same, I call it my blackout years. So I don't really remember much of my life from like 10 to 16. It just kind of went, it's passed by. I don't have many memories. I know of things that happened through people telling me, and I was still fine. Like, I done okay in school. I still worked hard at sport, and I was okay at that. But in terms of life in general, I don't really remember it. It wasn't until I was about 16 did I realise that if I was actually going to do this for the rest of my life, I would die knowing that I've completely wasted what she gave us when we were younger. And that was when I started to develop that mindset of realising I have the responsibility to do everything. It's all in my control. Anything outside of my control doesn't matter. Who gives a fuck? Yep. Everything that I can do that's in my control is what I need to focus on now. So at that point, I started going to the gym with my brother. He taught me everything I needed to know in the gym. And he'd done it in a really, really good way where all of the fundamentals of gym work were taught first. So I didn't really lift weight until maybe 2 months into going to the gym on a consistent basis with him. We learned like the fundamentals of how to lift and what was right, what was wrong, what was good, what was not. And I think all of that and all of those things, basically like my second life had started in a sense where from 16 onwards, I then had to put me at the forefront. Now, there was obviously still mistakes I made, obviously still stupid shit I done as a 16-year-old. We were all stupid back then. We didn't have good ways of thinking, but especially at that point, that was what has taught me to then continue that moving forward and realising, life is very, very short. My mum died at 40, so from now I would have 16 years maximum if I were to die at her age, which is not a lot in terms of how quickly that can go if you are trodden through life without anything to be grateful for. If you're not taking the time to spend with good people, you're not going to watch sunsets, you're not going to the cinema, you're not going walks, you're not seeing different things. For me, that 10 to 16 felt like that, and it disappeared without a trace. Yeah. And I know that can happen. There's some interesting research actually on after you turn 25, most achievements in life that are brought through other people have kind of gone. So not everyone, but people can get married at that time. People can have their first kid, but you have past university, school, kindergarten, anything like that. You've got through the majority of stages in your life where family are around the most. You're around the most people. There's the most support that you've got. Yep. But after 25, things just become the same. And that scared the living shit out of me, where it's like from 25 to 65, it's just blink and it's gone. Yep. That's it, because you've done the same job every day, you've done the same thing every day, you've not expanded your horizons, you've not done something to better yourself. And that really scared me. So for me, that's when that started to change, and she's played the biggest impact on that. Yep. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for that. And as bad as it is to say, you know, I genuinely don't think I would be as good of a person as I am now if that were to not happen. I still think I would have been a decent human being. My mum and dad raised me quite well. I'm very, very fortunate that I had good parents. But if that had not have happened, I would probably have not pushed myself the way I have to get to the position I am today.
100%. What do you think she would say if she was here now?
I hope proud. I believe so. I have good family that know her really well, and a lot of the times tell me that I remind them of her through the person that I am, the things that I do, and the way that I handle myself, which I'm quite proud of, because I always knew that my mum would be my best friend. My brother and my dad get on quite well. They like the same things. And it's not to say that my dad and me don't. My dad coached me in football for 6 years. So we obviously had a good relationship, but my brother and him bonded better. I know I would have bonded better with my mum. And me knowing that I remind my family of her, it's a nice feeling. And I do believe that she would be proud of what I've done.
When your mum passed then, like when you were referring to like your dad and Craig and stuff like that, I'd imagine that felt pretty lonely.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. The way you usually feel is that family all say we're there for you. If you need anything, let us know. And my personality was different from my brother's, where I actually did speak a lot about my mum at the time. So when she had initially passed, I was crying every night. I was talking to family, crying at every opportunity that I could possibly get with the family. My brother locked himself away. Video games was what he locked himself away with. So in the beginning, when it had happened, I really did just express all of my feelings. And it's probably because of how young I was. My brother's 3.5 years older than me. So he was more mature than me at the time. I was an absolute ball. I couldn't go to school without crying. Like, I could barely go to school at the time. Even when I got into like the lines to go into school, I was crying. When I was in class, I was crying. It was terrible. It really was. I was not a good human being. I wasn't living. I was just there existing in hurt. And my brother and my dad became just, we need to get through this. So he just done everything he possibly could to help us live a normal life, going to football, making sure we're getting good food. My grands would try and help out, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I talked about it a lot in the beginning. I was just an emotional mess. It wasn't maybe until I was 12, I realised that everything I was doing wasn't benefiting anyone. All I was doing was hurting my family, knowing that I was hurt on a consistent basis, and I wasn't doing anything to help me. So at that point, that's when I started to lock myself away with not talking about my emotions and not talking about how I was feeling. And I found video games as well. So again, it all comes back to Craig. If Craig had went off the rails, started taking drugs and that, I reckon I would have been the same. Exactly. I'd have followed him. I'd have jumped off that cliff with him. But because he chose video games, I chose video games as well and started to dive into that. So once I got to his age of when he was there, when my mum had passed, I just became him basically and played games most of the night. That's what my focus was. But still wasn't a great life, you know. Still blackout. Still wasn't sleeping till 5 a.m, up for school at 7, up all night. I had to have sound on. I couldn't have nothing. And even to this day, I still play sound every night, but it's gotten a lot better with what it is. It's like the Calm app with the meditation and stuff like that. So it's more genuinely good things rather than having to have sound because I can't have silence.
I resonate with that big time. I know there's a few others that resonate with that big time. Yeah, I mean, do you feel like this played a role in where you evolved into kind of during the coaching phase? You obviously started digging a little bit deeper into like crypto, investments, other different avenues, and obviously started to become pretty big in the kind of NFT space where you started actually building a community there as well, on YouTube, creating content. Do you feel like a lot of stuff you've reflected on there kind of played a part in you wanting to dip your toes in other aspects?
It did, in the sense of wanting to try everything and anything that would be an opportunity. Because what I found with crypto, and still to this day, it still happens all the time, is that there's some people who absolutely love it and will dedicate their life to doing this new thing that's going on. There are other people who hate it, despise it, and if you do it, you're absolute Satan, you should die. And it's kind of like those two sides of the coin. But for me, I really like to be, well, let's hear them out. Let's see what it's got to offer. Has it actually got some use case? Is there something possible there? And the other opportunity was, this was my first opportunity that I saw where people were talking about this being the first, or the first opportunity of the likes of the internet, the way the internet had that impact on the world with crypto. So for me, that intrigued me, where this was my first opportunity to see something that could have such an impact on the world that I can be there first, where people are all complaining, they're all moaning, they're all hating on it, rather than trying to learn and see how you can actually use it to your advantage. So for me, that's the route that I took. And I think that probably comes from that, where I'm wanting to try everything. And that is what I done. I tried everything. I got into crypto. I started to really enjoy it. There were specific companies that I found that were carbon neutral, which didn't have the damaging effects that the environment played on the other aspects of what crypto is, and what probably a lot of people who don't know about crypto still think it is to this day. And I started creating YouTube videos on it, built that community up over the course of a year or so, and made a decent amount of money in actually doing so.
Amassed like over 800,000 views through your YouTube videos, which I always think is really... I mean, it's incredible for a start, because you built something in a brand new community from scratch in a really short time frame. Like, or I think it was when we originally spoke about like 10 months, for example, it took you even to get to that stage, which, I guess, like, how did you go about building that audience in a niche or environment that nobody knew who you were?
First, it was Twitter. I actually created a separate Twitter for crypto in the beginning, because I knew how people felt about crypto, and I was like, okay, I'll just do that first. I'll get to know some people, see if it's something I even like to do. And then after that, I saw that people were reciprocating what I was wanting to do, what I was wanting to talk about, which the company that I was most involved in was a company called Vivi, and they're still going today, where they're licensed and partnered with Marvel, DC, Disney. They've got massive works with a lot of different individual artists as well. So I was really, really attracted at the beginning, when it was just starting out, was Batman. It was DC. I'm a very, very big fan of Batman. I love the movies. I love his just overall role as a superhero. Well, he doesn't really class himself as a superhero, but still who he is as an individual and who he is as a person. I love that sort of portrayal of that character, and he was on Vivi. So you could get Todd McFarlane's version of Batman on Vivi itself, and that was the first one that I wanted to go for. But at the time when I originally started, I didn't have money. I put £300 into that, and that was a big investment for me to put £300 into an app that I couldn't even take my money out of. And as I got more passionate about doing that and being on the app and talking about the app, that's when I wanted to move into doing it on long form content. Maybe there was other people who enjoyed that as well. Maybe there was other people who were like me and didn't have a lot of money, or enjoyed Batman, and they wanted to talk about, what could happen next, speculating on the company, because way before Disney was ever announced as a partnership, that was speculation. It was like bringing Spider-Man to the table. Would Marvel ever do something like this? So at that point, when I first got into the app itself, what was being released was things called Mermicornos and Ultraman, which is a lot bigger in Asia, but not here. So I got in at a time where people were talking about it, but it maybe wasn't as big as we'd thought. And about 2 months into it, I decided to just take the leap and try it. Someone who I knew from school was already creating content on Vivi itself, so I had him to sort of bounce ideas off of. And moving forward with that to actually build the community, again, it was like everything. Truly caring about what people have to say, listening to their advice and their opinions, and then cultivating a community that genuinely cares about you and what you do. I try to think level-headed in as much as I possibly can. I try to be a logical thinker in everything that I do. When it came to crypto, you had people who did not want to think logically and were thinking this is going to £400 million in the next day. And then there were other people who were saying this is going to absolutely crash tomorrow. But for me, I wanted to look at data. to see how things actually moved. And I think people liked that. I got a lot of good comments about that where they went to me because I wasn't going to be someone that would just try and pump everything that I had in my own account. And I was never going to be someone that would just go negative instantly when any news came out. Let's work out what that news means. Could this actually mean any benefit for the future of the company? How do we think more long-term in this? Yeah. And that's what I believe made me separate from other people. People covered the news of what happened, or people were talking about why something was going to go to the moon, which is a term often used in crypto of skyrocketing, going really high, and in the blink of an eye, basically, not taking like the stock journey where it usually goes up quite slowly, but really just shooting up very, very quickly. I really wanted to go on the stance of, let's look at this logically. What could genuinely happen here? What questions do you have to ask yourself before you're investing in anything like that? And I'm actually very, very proud of doing so, because I left, and I've not created videos on that because university took over. I was finishing my degree at the time, and I wasn't in a place to dedicate the time to all of the things I was doing, including that YouTube channel. So for me, building that community on a place of caring about who they were, caring about their investment, not making them or not pushing them to over leverage themselves and take profits when necessary to get profits out, that's what I believe led me to being quite successful in that field in such a short period of time.
You had the best intentions at heart.
I mean, I didn't care if something went to the moon. Great. If I had it, then fantastic. That's fine. At the end of the day, we're all selfish to a point. You know, we all want to be successful in our own mind, but there's absolutely no harm in wanting other people to be successful as well, and sharing the knowledge that you have that actually got you there in the first place.
100%, man. And obviously going through that journey of building first community on Twitch, then moving into coaching, and then building a kind of second community to a pretty big, pretty big stature, mate. You then started to evolve into where we're at right now.
Yep.
Where you started as a client of mine. You're one of the founding three, the magic three. Yourself, Blair, and Isabel. Walk me through the kind of process of like why you decided to even want to get involved in the network in the first place. What you felt like you were lacking.
Well, we had actually looked back on this. You had cold DM'd me, talking about the network. You know, salesman coming in there. But you talked to me about the network and what it was, and then when I looked on your account, you were my age. You played games. I knew that we would obviously have things to talk about. And at the time when I was doing, at that point, it was the coaching stuff, and that was what I was predominantly focused on. I didn't have really anyone to talk to that wanted to discuss about growth and development over a longer period of time. It was really about all streamers. That was who I knew. The problem with streamers is they're all negative as fuck all the time for some reason. There's always something to moan about, and there still is to this day, because I've still got my Twitter where the majority of people who still follow me would have been from my streaming days. Always negative. There's always something going on. And there was no one that ever thought about how do we actually just develop as better people ourselves? What can we control to be better? And you were the first person that I saw that. And that was what made me want to come in, try it, see what it was like. Yep. Now, obviously at the time, Young and Lazy was not Young and Lazy, it was a Young Entrepreneurs Network. And we were doing just the way when you hear networking, it really was that. Yeah. You were coming into a room, you were talking about what you do. And that was kind of about it at the time. Yeah. But there were two people in there, which was Blair and Isabel, who are still clients to this day for Young and Lazy, like 2.5 years later, who stuck out. They were younger, they were very passionate about what they do, they were good at what they do, and they wanted to help others. Yeah. And over time, you had suggested, would you want a group call each week where it's just us four who are in these calls together? And after that solidified to me, holy crap, being around people who want to see me succeed and me wanting to do the same for them is a game changer. Yep. So that was what originally got me involved, with just being around other people who wanted to see growth, but seeing others who were around about my age, knew things that I wanted to learn, wanted to see the best in me, and then me wanting to see the best in them. It changed the game for me.
Do you feel like you experiencing that with like your brother growing up helped you see very quickly that it was a similar like support from people that actually didn't even know you fully?
Yeah. It's the thing that I always think of is that I have always been and always liked to be a leader in situations. I thrive on that. I'm good with that, and I always have led, even when I was younger and even leading up to this. seeing other people who were leaders in themselves made me see that there are other people that care, like my brother, that don't know me, and that they are able to lead themselves. It's not you're having to do everything for them. They're able to go away and lead themselves, but also can take advice from yourself, even outside of that field. And for me, that was something that really, really stuck.
100%, mate. And I think, just like you touched on, when you're around people, and we've spoken about it so many times, there's just different wavelengths that everyone else is on, and someone is setting the bar. And when that bar is being set, you constantly just start to rise and rise and rise through that bar, and it starts to compound quite heavily. What was some of the things that you started to experience around about then that had an impact on your personal life / business, that was when you were surrounding yourself with Blair and as well, myself?
Your whole life changes, because you start to realize that your life can actually be as good as you want it to be. Like, you have control over that, and that's where it comes back to that control. You have control of what you do over the day. And I know it is really a cliche thing to say, where it's like, yeah, you can control it, and you have your morning routines and all that sort of stuff. But what you do matters. Everything that you do leads to something else. And within the habit field, there's interesting things related to your brain and how your brain works. So in real simple terms, the more you do something, the stronger your brain understands that is the something that you do. So if you're to go a walk every morning at 6:30 in the morning, your brain inevitably after 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks will get up and just go to walk. You won't need to think about it. It's like you tying your shoelace now. You don't need to think about tying your shoelace. So being around other people who consistently reinforce the positives of tying your shoelace every single day and following on from that, it just makes you realize of what you're capable of. You realize that the limit you set yourself as an individual is nowhere near the limit that you can reach. And as you were saying, by being around more people, that ceiling gets higher. Someone sets the bar a little bit higher, everyone wants to set that bar a little bit higher. And even you take the example of the high performance days. Connor Malone, who's a PT, one of our clients, who's actually doing the 4x4x48 at the moment. He started high performance days where you got up at 4 a.m, you done a 50-minute run, and then you done 2 hours of work before everyone else got up, and then you got on with your day, your normal day. We started to see how much of an impact that was making on us just as individuals, of like, oh my God, that can actually benefit your life. He set that bar. And now I believe you're on week 15 of the high performance day, doing that every single week. I think I'm on week 16, but I could be wrong. It might be 15 as well. I'm not 100% sure. And that is one small example of a much larger picture of what it means to be around other people who want to consistently set their own bar higher. And that was what Blair and Isabel were able to do.
100%. I think when you, Blair at the time in property, doing huge deals, like fucking shit that we had never been exposed to, I think it started to open our mind as well to what was possible. They'd built a decent portfolio. They were looking at the deal that they're already in the works they're doing just now, where they were buying like a 2-point-something million project, doing a 2-point-something million project. And I say something because the figure is like changed so much, so it's just continued to rise. It started as 1.2 and it's just continued to go up and up. Been exposed to Blair and the values that he had as well, so similar to mine, man, and so similar to yours, that it became like a proper four individuals that just were so aligned that resulted in proper growth, which seems like you experienced quite heavily. Now, fast tracking that kind of process to, I mean, we could have touched on hella stuff probably around there, mate, but one of the things I wanted to, I guess, provide as value to the audience was our journey as becoming business partners, from being a client to being business partners, and the relationship that we built over the last 14 months as actual business partners. Because, and the reason I think that that's super important to touch on is because we notice it a lot within our clients, that it's lonely as fuck to obviously be running a business yourself. There is so many aspects that, if I was to make it about me for just a couple of minutes, that when I reflect on my life prior to running the business with yourself, it was a fucking mess, mate. The business was a shambles, bro. I wouldn't even class it as a business. I had about 40 different notepads, all with different things in it, all stacked in this big drawer at the top of my chest of drawers. And I was just, investing in coaching and just applying whatever it was that was taught to me that week and trying to grow this business based on the knowledge that I had, which at the time was just stuff to do with COD and gaming, which did serve me well.
Uh-huh.
Now, when I reflect back in that time, and it might seem like I'm being a bit harsh, I genuinely just felt really chaotic and unsure how to press forward. But I knew I'd figure it out, but I just didn't know how long it was going to take me. Now, when you kind of came in as a co-owner and we started working together, a lot of that chaos started to subside, go off to the side. It was something that just kind of started to get slowly and slowly removed. And when I feel like how I'm operating now on a day-to-day basis, it's going to be hard to describe, but see, like at the front of your head where you're not feeling massively overwhelmed, you don't feel like you've got a million things going on anymore. It doesn't feel like there's 100 million circles going on in your head. It's so easy for me to navigate through each day and with a really clear mind of how to move forward. Now, I believe the catalyst of that has been yourself, because of, Jack actually said it as we were driving in, you being the yin to my yang.
Yang?
Is it that way? Yin yang? Yeah, yin yang, that makes sense. Because you're quite the opposite to me in a lot of avenues. Like, when we talk about risk, you're the exact opposite is myself. When it talks about like systems and processes, exact opposite to myself. There was none of them within the business. And then when we also talk about, there's one other as well that I was thinking about as I was driving in: systems, processes, risk, emotion, logic. You operate much more on logic. I also do operate in logic, but I don't need to know every possible reason to why, or every way that something could go. If something feels right to me, I'll act on it. And my mindset towards that is that if it goes wrong, then I'll learn from it. If it goes right, then I save myself a shit ton of time trying to figure it out. Now, through us working together, there has been a massive level of like, we really have created a company that there is a clear path forward and moving forward. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of young entrepreneurs listening to this just now that they maybe don't feel like they're moving forward, or they're unsure about how to move forward. And obviously that's why we created the network, where if people didn't have business partners, they were able to come in, talk about things, talk about ideas, improve their business, which is great. But I think that what we'd created as business partners, it's allowed for us to create something that we could see being huge in a decade, 2 decades time, which I think is really important. So reflecting on the kind of start of that process, when I approached you about that, 2 reasons for context of approaching Andy. I went to Tony Robbins' Unleash Your Power Within event, and he said 2 things. One, high leverage opportunities attract higher value individuals. In order for you to attract individuals that would want to be part of something that you're building, it needs to be something of higher leverage. So that was the first thought, where I was like, that's, how the fuck do I create something that's high leverage though? And the second thing was on the basis of, and it slipped my mind because I was too busy focusing on the first one, it was about the size of a pie. And it was like, everyone wants to have the biggest pie possible, and they only think about owning 100% of the pie. Whereas if you were to do it with someone else, and a slice of that pie that you actually had in the first place was to grow to a bigger size than your full pie, then surely it would be worth you working together with them on that. And for context, you're to buy a pie and it's 100%, but you gave half of it away, but that pie then grew to 500, 1,000%, then you're obviously going to have more than what you would have had if you just done it yourself. Those 2 things played a huge catalyst in my thought process of, well, fuck, I really need to, I need to find someone that can actually benefit what I'm wanting to do and build. And you are that individual that came front of mind. Now, the process of us starting to work together, mate, walk me through your kind of thought process, what kind of things you wanted to get ironed out. And I guess those for like first few months.
The first thing for me, when I think of that, and you said wanted to get iron out, I've said this to clients, and I repeat this to clients all the time. You need to know what the top of your first mountain is. So I quite like to climb Monroes, and it's something that one of my goals is to do all of them. But what you find is that you want to find a great day to climb the Monroe, because it means you can see the top. So there's been one time that me and my friend have climbed one where it was completely fogged over. And we got to this halfway point, and you looked out and you could see about 2 feet in front of you. And it was quite terrifying because we actually didn't know where the path was. We had no idea like how to get up there. Luckily, it wasn't a complicated Monroe. So it was near civilization. If you got lost, like you would be able to get help. It would just take time for the fog to clear. In regards to business for that, when you have no idea what's 2 feet in front of you, you're screwed, because you're waking up every day and you don't know what's going on. You wake up and you're anxious. you don't know where your business is going. You don't know how to move your business forward. You don't know if this decision is going to lead to 400 other decisions that you're going to have to make that's not actually going to benefit your business in any way. So for me, when it came to the first things I wanted ironed out was knowing where our top of the first mountain was. Mm-hmm. And that was using the mural board at the time to lay out 3 specific categories that would help improve the business and why they would improve the business. And after that, we went into what would we need to do in order to make those achievable. I can't quite remember what all 3 of them were. I believe sales, systems, and then there was maybe one other that we had. I'm really not sure what that was.
Delivery. It's just like putting the clients first.
So those were the 3 key areas that I needed ironed out to begin with. And you done that. You went away and I remember when we had that conversation, I said that we need to know where we're wanting to go. What is it we're actually going to do first? Because there's no point of focusing on one thing that's not going to benefit us or the business. Mm-hmm. And that was what we worked on for the first 3 months, which was our trial period. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know if we've discussed very much with anyone really, is that we done 3 months trial of working together to see if we would actually be good, see if it would even work, or if we just hated each other by the end of it, which I hate you even more now. So I mean, but that was what we had done. So for me, ironing out exactly where that top of the first mountain was essential to even think about wanting to work with you.
100%. And your kind of not relationship, but experiences you had in the past with people that you wanted to go into maybe joint ventures with or do things with. What was different about this one as opposed to others?
You were willing to put in more work. I had done a few things with other people when it came to the podcast I ran or the streams I was doing. If I was doing like a co-stream with someone, if I was bringing someone on as a guest. But there was another one that specifically came to my mind where we wanted to start providing a place where people could send in their clips from their stream or their games or anything like that, and we would post them and do like top 5s and stuff, and we would give people money for the winners and we'd have people vote and all that sort of stuff. I done the majority of what was going on there. You know, I edited all of the clips. I tried to get everything organized together. And for me, that was brutal because eventually that died down after about 2 months. And it was purely because the only help I was getting was from me doing most of the work. There was maybe some here and there that were helping, but for the majority of the time, it was mainly me who was doing it. So I haven't had massive experience in doing a joint venture with someone because things potentially have never been taken far enough to be the same as this caliber. But from the experiences that I had were amazing, to say the least.
There was actually a time that I recall just reflecting on where we were sitting 5 guys and when I proposed the opportunity to you, the first thing you said was, I don't want what you want.
Yeah.
In terms of what Andy was referring to was that at the time I had this huge goal of building YNL now into a £2.3 billion company. And Andy's mindset at the time was tailored to not wanting that amount of wealth.
Yep.
And that was the first. And I feel like so many people will avoid those discussions, especially in the beginning, because it's honeymoon period. They don't want to talk about that, those sort of stuff. They just want to focus on the good stuff. But I can say wholeheartedly, I think every single discussion that we've had that could potentially be uncomfortable is served us like tenfold. And we've done so many of them at the beginning where it just made life so much easier now. And I want us to reflect on this because every single thing that we're reflecting on now is like when I think back to my life before then, really chaotic, not knowing how to progress forward. Just not really having any idea to move forward. I know there'll be a lot of other people that feel the exact same way. So if we're able to unravel that, it's fucking huge. So one, having those uncomfortable conversations at the beginning absolutely played a huge part. The trial period, and then splitting that trial period up once again through your expertise of identifying what we wanted to do to move forward. And that was where the month trial and sales, where I recorded every sales call, send it to Auntie. So you could imagine there was a lot of uncomfortable conversations there as well, where it was really brutal honesty. But truth, you know, it was the truth, which is what mattered. Now, I guess reflecting on after that 3 months was done and we started to obviously map actually going forward, at what point did you start to see it as something that you wanted to be your primary focus? Because at the time it wasn't. No. And your shares within the company also reflected that at the time in terms of the proposition that we'd put forward. So what time did you want it to, or what were you kind of seeing?
I saw a massive future for it. I didn't see a massive future for the other things that I was currently doing. So it was university at the time. That was one of them, the crypto side of things. And then it was that. That was my 3 main priorities at the time. The other one was the coaching, actually. I was coaching for another company as well. So I had 4 at the time that I had to decide by. And I knew that priorities were important. I could not half-arse 4 things and do well on them. So for me, I realized that I needed to think about what had the legs for me as a passion, for me as an individual. And that was university, which didn't like, but I was doing, and then Young and Lazy, or Young Entrepreneurs Network at the time. Yeah. The other 2, I saw future for short term, not for long term. And I decided there and then that I had to focus on maximum 2 things, because I knew university was already playing a part of that. I'd made an agreement with my dad that if I could take a year out back when I was 18 to work on my business, which was when I started Twitch streaming, I would go and get my education. I stuck to that promise. I got distinction for my 3rd year. I've got my degree. I'm done with that now. But that was going to be a thing that I had to do, so I could only choose one other thing. And that was the Young Entrepreneurs Network, and that's why I decided, because I could just see a future with it.
What would be your advice to someone else at the moment that is potentially feeling the same way that I did, that is looking to... I always think like looking to find a business partner is like the wrong mindset to have towards it, because it very much just happened naturally. I feel like a lot of things that evolve from an organic aspect, like how we work together, for looking at people within the network now, like there is joint ventures that have happened within the network through people that have met through Young and Lazy, all of which just kind of naturally have all happened. So I think when you're going out and you're searching for it, it's very much not going to happen, because you need to build a good strong foundation. And for us, like, you were a client for over a year. We spent every week together. We spoke pretty much every day anyways. What would be your advice to an individual that maybe felt similar to me?
You need values is first and foremost. We don't allow everyone into the network for a reason, because if we were to allow everyone that's applied for the network in, the network wouldn't be a thing anymore. We wouldn't have Young and Lazy. No one would want to be in it. And that's purely because the values of an individual matter so much. There's a reason why clients in the network have started multiple joint ventures together that are all doing incredibly well. And that's one, because of values. The value they have as an individual, as a person, who they are, how they treat others. And the thing that we always say is, why do I always forget it? It's like the, instead of competition, it's collaboration. That's it. So it's people who actually value collaboration. The second one, and I think the reason why all of these have been successful, where we've seen clients working together and ourselves, is because you have actually been able to witness the true reality of that individual. You saw me as a client, and you saw the work that I done as an individual. I saw you as an individual who'd done your work. You couldn't bullshit me anymore. There can't be, because I worked with you so closely for so long as a client. I saw who you were as an individual. I knew who you actually were. Did you stick to your word? Did you actually do the work that you said that you were going to do? Did you genuinely treat people the way that you say you treat people? And the problem is, if you're going in with someone that you don't know, you can get fucked over easily, because you can put on a facade. It's quite easy to do that. Most people do it nowadays, where on social media, it's just a chapter of your life. It's not who you are as an individual. You could see someone posting that they're giving to charity, but they're a massive racist in the background. If you want to go as a business partner with them just because of the things they do on social media, you don't quite know what's happening in the background just yet. And it's not until you actually get into the thick of things do you realize what someone is. And I think coming back to wanting to have those difficult conversations is the next really, really important part. It's like when you're looking for a relationship with anyone you're attracted to. If you do not figure out what values you have as an individual to begin with, that is inevitably going to fail at some point. Because if you have completely opposite values, you don't want the same things, there's going to come a point where tension will arise and you will not be able to deal with it, because you've not communicated. You don't understand what that other person wants. It's the same with a business partner. We had difficult conversations that made us both very uncomfortable, and still have them to this day. But we both know that we're coming at it from an aspect of, how can this help us and the business grow? It's not about, how can I one up this person, or I know this person doesn't value what I'm going to say, so I'm not even going to say it. You have to find someone that you're comfortable enough to have those conversations with. Because what you'll find is, if that person is a piece of shit in the background, as soon as that uncomfortable conversation is brought up, you'll see it. You'll see who they are. Your true self will come out when you're uncomfortable, when your back's up against the wall, and when emotions start to really drive up. So for me, those are all the things you have to look for. If you're looking for someone, You need to get to know them, you need to see their values, and you need to have difficult conversations, because then you're going to see their actual true self, who they are as an individual.
Couldn't agree more, mate. Some of the things that you've not maybe touched on so far, that because these are all lessons, so the reason I'm starting with that is that I kind of wanted to unravel what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned through us working together as business partners that other people could potentially apply.
Understanding your own risk. That's a big one. That's something that John and I are quite different on in terms of risk. John is quite risk heavy. I'm quite risk averse. And it's not to say that we do it in a bad way, where John doesn't think logically. He thinks very logically on what the risks he wants to take. I am very risk averse, where I want to see every avenue of what something's going to do before I move into anything. So understand your own risk. Understand where you actually lie on that scale, and have other people in your life that are more risk heavy or risk averse than you. Get their own opinion, because you might not be taking leaps purely because you're scared, and that is going to hinder you of doing so. Or if you're very risk heavy, you might be taking too much risk and not actually thinking about it logically. So for me, that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned, is understand your own risk and get other people who will help you understand to make the best decision, rather than being so risk heavy that you make wild decisions and all of them waste your time and money and effort. And don't be so risk averse that you're never going to take a leap on anything that will push your comfort zone, because you're very scared of what the unknown's going to have.
I completely agree, mate. I think it's something that you already kind of briefly touched on it already. If someone is really risk seeking, like me before yourself, like I was willing to go out and source investment for things that I wasn't even like fully like even understanding what it actually looked like. And it was because I just had the mindset that I just wanted to play to win. But little did I know that if I'd potentially done that, yes, I would have learned a lot of lessons during that thought process, but I could have potentially put myself in a negative position, which is something to be mindful of for sure. And I think I guess unraveling some of that definitely helped both of us see how we could meet somewhat in the middle, and it's resulted in the kind of structure that we've ended up creating within the company just now. So we've unraveled obviously some of the lessons, reflected on some of the ways that I guess some of the things that we've put in place in order to actually serve us as a whole. Obviously, some of the changes that we made probably in the business over the last even just month has came through advice, through mentors and people that are, you know, much further ahead than us. Weirdly enough, some of which are clients as well, which is always fucking mad, because when you've got clients that are doing 150 to 200k a month, they're going to see the world in a completely different way. Their perception of life is completely different. What would you say our vision is for moving forward and what we want to do?
It's definitely more aggressive than it used to be. That's for sure. Because we are very, very fortunate to have good people around us who are extremely successful, way more successful than we are, and have had more time in the business game than us, we're able to learn where to be aggressive to move this forward. For context, John himself had worked out how long it would take us to get to one of the milestones we wanted to do with Young and Lazy, of what we're currently at. I believe it got to 141 years. So over John and I's both lifetimes, in order to get that to a place where we want to make significant impact on as many people's lives as possible, but also our own families, our own friends. And the more leverage and opportunities that we have, the more ability we will get to actually give back, which is something that we've always wanted to do and continue to do to this day. The book John will always reference would be Unreasonable Hospitality, gifted by Mo, who was unreasonably hospitable to him to give him that book and all the lessons that he has got within it. So for me, the vision's changed to be more aggressive on helping as many people as we can, but also helping ourselves, which it brings back to the point of it's good to be selfish in certain ways, of looking at where you can actually make the most impact on yourself as an individual, what you can do, what you can maneuver, what you can shift to in order to do that. So currently with the vision, looking at building out systems and processes that mean that we don't actually have to be involved in every single aspect of the business, where we can help people bring in that can do the job that we are doing, but to even a better standard. And then also to create a service that is so irresistible that it can help people go from every avenue of business that people don't often talk about much, like the conversations that you need to have, like the side of mental health for yourself as an individual, the grind, the hustle culture, and how that can actually be detrimental over the long run. And one of the clips you sent me today about actually finding others who are better than you and being around those people, that's something you just don't hear in entrepreneurship. So creating a service where not only are you going to be surrounded by people who have incredible values and incredible businesses, but also a service that can help them out of every situation they have for themselves.
Completely agree, mate. I think it's been a huge catalyst for what we're doing. I think the best way to sum it up is definitely how aggressive we are now as opposed to before, because I've been reflecting on that initial discussion that we had on like the billionaire status. You were very much not unaligned with it, but it wasn't even at the forefront. Whereas I think now it's been a huge shift, which has came probably from us actually reflecting on the potential that it's got and having that reaffirmed. I think it'd be valuable to share probably the lessons that of some of the things that we're implementing just now. Myself and Andy have always ran the company 50-50 in terms of like a to-do list. We just, at the beginning of working together, cool, you'll take that, I'll take this. And that just became things that we would do. So when I say split, I mean like we split the delivery, we split like the managing of numbers, we split like systems, like everything was just split. It wasn't just one thing assigned to one person, which we've realized now is obviously quite detrimental to actually have a system that would flow that way. Now we learned this method through one of our clients, Lawrence, who's also been on the podcast. Him and his business partner Jake had always ran the company also as co-CEOs. And through a book called Rocket Fuel, it helped us understand the structure of a business that would best serve us. Now, in Comfortable Conversations, that is absolutely fucking one of them, without a doubt. The kind of structure that we've implemented that is going to help serve us more moving forward is playing more on our strengths. We spoke earlier on about your being more logical, me acting more on emotion. There is aspects that come into play that are going to allow for us to lean more on our strengths. One of the strengths that I've identified from working with yourself is that when it comes to you getting a to-do list and working through things and doing it at a really high level of efficiency, I mean, you literally just done your last year of uni, will run the business full time. You didn't drop the ball on anything. Clients, focus groups, fucking calls that we have a call every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Didn't drop the ball on any of those things, which I think is a massive sign of the kind of strengths that you actually embody. So for context, guys, we implemented a structure that basically had an individual that would operate as a visionary and an individual that would operate as an integrator. Now Andy's went into like an integrator like role where Andy basically manages a lot of the delivery of the company. He is able to, I guess, go above and beyond for clients, which is what he's done since he's been here. I've also done that, of course, but
John hates the clients. That's confirmed.
Clearly, been thrown under the bus there. That was my own fault. Walked myself into that one. But yeah, when it comes to the managing of clients, managing of numbers, the overall, I guess, like the person that makes this shit actually happen, I feel like the strengths that you're really playing on there from an aspect of efficiency, you're able to fucking nail. And I would heavily recommend like checking out Rocket Fuel, or even going online and just having a look at like Rocket Fuel structure, be able to see the visionary integrator. The integrator operates more on logic as well, whereas I've moved into a role that would be the visionary, where I do most of the research and development. I manage the kind of big ideas. I bring big changes into the company. I build big relationships with individuals that are going to help us move forward. I'm heavily focused on the culture. And I operate more on emotion, which, like I explained earlier on, that's not like you're spending $100,000 in Mora on a gaff for no fucking reason. There is genuine logic to my chaos, but I definitely operate more on like, does my gut tell me this feels good? Yeah, cool, let's fucking just do it then. And I think over these last 4 weeks, with it being pretty fresh, this has absolutely been the most productive and most aggressive for sure that we've been in the last 4 weeks, that I believe that is probably going to be something that we're just going to continue to do. What's your thoughts overall over this last like 4 weeks of the stuff that we put in place now? Has it served you?
I think right now it's something that I had spoken about with clients when they had started new ventures, and it's not a new venture, but it's a new area of our business. Currently, I'd say we're in uncontrolled chaos where it's new, it's exciting, there's a lot of flashy things going on, and there's a lot to learn. So right now, everything is kind of, shifting. So I've been taking over different parts of the business that you had originally done. I'm now coming up with systems that will make it work more smoothly so that we can focus on the bigger picture over the long term. And as well with Jack, who we've brought in as our client success manager, who's sitting right behind me, he's been a fantastic asset of what we can then do with the company and how we can help clients even further through the stuff that we're doing. So we've learned so many lessons on bringing in the first person that we would like to work with us within the company since me coming in to work with you. And there's been a lot of lessons for me in that, with how important it is to come up with the right systems and the right processes to make everything as clear as day, to make everything work. So for me right now, it does feel we're in that uncontrolled chaos, which is not a bad thing. It's a really good thing, because it allows you to do everything and anything that really comes to your mind of how this is going to help. What I believe we'll be moving into in the next quarter or so is getting that as to controlled chaos, where there's systems and processes for everything. Everything runs smoothly. Everything can be done without us actually being there. For some of the days where we may have to be out, we might have to do something else, but everything can run without us. And really moving the company to a place where we have aggressively moved forward with something that is going to change ours and others' lives, and get it to a stage where we can help even more people in a shorter span of time.
Without a doubt, mate. Couldn't agree more. Summed it up perfectly. There's nothing else to add on that front, without a doubt. Guess rounding it off then, because we're like an hour and 20 minutes in, which is fucking mad. What would be your advice to your 19-year-old self?
Oh, take more risks. Yeah, just take more risks. Take leaps. Jump. I'm too risk averse.
I was like, see, hearing that, by the way, holy shit.
Yeah, it's awesome. too much, too much risk averse, and too scared to speak your mind. I was very scared of being like cancelled. I was very scared of other opinions. And what frustrated me the most was that I actually done research to know why my opinion was either factual or I had legs to it. So I don't know why I doubted myself when I knew that I would put in the time and effort to actually solidify the way that I was feeling and learn how I would do that. So yeah, jump. That's me for my advice.
Love that, brother. Well, I think it's been an awesome episode, mate. We've covered a lot of good shit. We've been able to actually highlight your proper journey from start to finish, where we're at now, where we're taking the business forward, which I think will serve anyone that listens to it, man. I hope people have taken immense value, brother. So thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me.
It's been amazing, mate. Yeah, any final words where people can find you, where you're at, where you're most active?
Yeah, you'll be able to find me on Instagram, Andrew Ellis, with I believe 3 underscores that it's got. I couldn't get it down to 2 or 1, as that had already been taken. And if you're wanting to find out more about the company, Young and Lazy, on Instagram as well, you'll be able to find the website online where you'll be able to see everything that we do, how our clients have moved forward, and what we're working towards.
Amazing, bro. Thank you so much, mate. It was honestly an amazing episode, man. So if you're on Spotify, episodes are going up every 2 weeks at the moment. Make sure you ring the wee bell. And yeah, make sure you rate it as well, man. I mean, get it up there. 5 stars. Got to get something in there. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. Episodes are going up there usually. I mean, the video is on both platforms, but the majority of people would watch the YouTube side of things for that. So yeah, let us know what your favorite part was. Let us know where you took the most value away from. And yeah, I'll probably see you in 2 weeks, man. So thank you very much for listening.
Love it.